this Planning Review Committee. Before we go any further, could I say at this stage that apologies are in for the convener, who will not be able to join us this morning, Councillor Alexander. With us, we have other members of the review this morning, which would be Councillor McCluckie. If you could put your hand up, Councillor McCluckie. We have Councillor Hughes and Councillor Fair. We also have a number of officials with us today, and if I could maybe go first of all, go round the table and get them to introduce themselves and tell us what their designations are. Tonya.
Tonya Sabirai, Committee Services Officer.
Douglas.
Good morning, Douglas Blythe, Team Leader in Legal Services and the Legal Advisor to the committee this morning.
Thank you. Julie.
Julie Seidel, Planning Officer, Development Management.
John.
John Milne, Planning Officer, Development Management.
Okay, thank you very much for that. We'll go through into the business now. The first one is apologies. We've already had the apology from the convener, Councillor Alexander. The next part is the declaration of interest. And just for clarity, I will read this out. Members should declare any financial and non-financial interest they have in any item of business at the meeting, identifying the relevant agenda item and the nature of the interest. Have we any declarations of interest at this time?
No.
None? None recorded. Okay, thank you for that. That takes us to item 3 on your agenda, which is the minute. It's the minute of meeting of the Planning and Review Committee held on the 21st of June 2021. It's pages 3 to 7 on your agenda papers. Can we agree the minute?
Agreed.
Read the minute. That's fine. Thank you. That takes us to item 4, which is the Planning and Review Committee procedures. And this is for information. It's pages 8 to 12, and we follow this rigorously to ensure openness and transparency. Thank you. That takes us to item 5 this morning. We have 2 major reviews this morning, very hefty. Item 5 is the plan and application P20-0530 full development erection of 22 flatted dwellings and 1 dwelling house at land to the west of 14 King Street, Thornhill Road, Falkirk. It's pages 9 to 363 on your agenda. So you'll see with the amount of pages, having read them over the weekend, that it's quite a hefty document. Okay, then we'll head now to get an update on this by one of our officers.
Thank you, convener. Julie Seidel, planning officer here. As you state, this review relates to the development of 22 flats and 1 dwelling house at the western edge of Victoria Park on King Street and Thornhill Road in Falkirk. The application site comprises public open space, a footpath and a section of Thornhill Community Centre car park. The applicant states that the proposed development is for 100% social rented affordable housing. The development would be split over 2 blocks. Block A is shown as fronting King Street and Thornhill Road, and it is a 3-storey block with 2-storey adjoining dwelling house. Block B would front Victoria Park and is shown as being a larger 3-storey block. Materials are shown as smooth white render, cherry panelling, facing brick and concrete roof tile. Access would be taken off Thornhill Road, and the application includes the development of a new car park for the community centre to compensate for the loss of parking. In terms of the planning history of the site, it should be noted that a new planning application reference P21-0574 full has been submitted for the same development at the same site and is currently under consideration by the council. The consultation responses are detailed in the officer report from page 198 onwards of the papers. You'll see that the Roads Development Unit raised concerns that the proposed development would not provide enough off-street parking to serve the development. There's a shortfall of 4 spaces, which would encourage on-street parking. The Environmental Protection Unit advised that steps should be taken to ensure that there is not a significant impact in terms of noise in relation to the adjoining community centre, and Housing Services comment that the proposed development cannot be considered affordable housing because there is no registered social landlord, RSL, identified, and no information is submitted to support the application being affordable in accordance with council guidance. 9 representations were received, and these are summarised on page 199 of your papers. The application was assessed in relation to relevant policies of the development plan from page 201 onwards, and material considerations that the officer considered relevant are also noted in the delegated report which you have in front of you. The application was refused planning permission, and I'll just read the reasons for refusal. The proposed development would not provide sufficient on-site parking to accord with Falkirk Council parking standards, and would accordingly be likely to encourage on-street parking, which would not be in the interests of road safety. Accordingly, the proposed development does not accord with Falkirk Local Development Plan 2 policies IR09 parking, PE01 placemaking, HC02 windfall housing, and HC04 housing density and site capacity, and does not accord with supplementary guidance SG02 on neighbourhood design or the National Roads Development Guide. The second reason for refusal reads as follows. Proposed development does not meet design requirements for flatted affordable housing developments in accordance with supplementary guidance SG06 affordable housing. Furthermore, it has not been demonstrated that the design of the units as proposed can be delivered by a registered social landlord as affordable housing under the terms of the development plan and associated guidance. Accordingly, the proposed development does not accord with policy HC03 of the Falkirk Local Development Plan 2, affordable housing, and does not accord with supplementary guidance SG06, affordable housing. The notice of review is included at page 13 onwards of your papers. The appeal statement starts at page 19. The appellant comments that the developer is in direct discussions with an RSL who have confirmed their interest in the project. The appellant has not given details of the RSL and advises that they are not party to the discussion. The appellant is of the view that there should be no affordable housing reason for refusal because the site is suitable in principle for residential use, and affordable housing is not a separate use in its own class. The appellant is of the view that the level of parking shown in the proposed site plan is sufficient, and they have submitted a parking statement which seeks to justify the shortfall in parking, and the statement can be viewed at page 192 of your papers. The appellant's case is that the proposed development should be judged as a windfall site and is suitable in all respects because the site is within the urban area with no significant policy objections. Thank you, Convener.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Can everybody hear me okay? I'm still on.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Well, could I say at the very beginning that this is quite a major development, and obviously we've got to ensure that we require any further procedure after this first meeting. It's a very difficult situation for applicants because a local review is actually an appeal. It's an appeal against a decision that's been taken by an officer. It used to be the case, but obviously because of the pandemic over the past year and a half, that if we had a local review, the first part of that procedure would be going out on site. That was the very first thing that we did. We did that in the morning. The fact of the matter is, I think it's important. It's not really important, but it's imperative that members get a look at site, especially the scale and size of this one. Also believe that because it is an appeal, that people should have an opportunity to, not just the committee, but to put forward their case and ask questions. So before I go to the other members, I'm of a mind that we haven't got enough information here. I would move that we have a site visit, and also we go to a hearing, because at the end of it, the hearing decides, hold a hearing session, and you can fix it as an early date as practical. We can go out and site whenever, because it's not a full committee. But the fact is, I'll come to members now, but that's in my mind at the moment, that we haven't got enough information here. And it would be unfair, I think, to discuss such a major application without giving the applicant an opportunity to put forward their case, and an opportunity for members of this committee to ask a number of relevant questions. So I'm going to go first around. Councillor Kerr.
Convener, I wholeheartedly agree with you that this is a massive step here. And I had a few questions for Julie regarding the social housing aspect, but going to see the site first, I think, would be beneficial, Convener. So I'm happy with your summary, Provost.
Thank you. We'll go down the list. It's Councillor McCluskey, then Councillor Hughes.
No problem with that, Convener.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Hughes.
I have no problem.
Okay, thank you. I'll go to our legal representative, Mr. Blythe. What's been put forward by myself and been agreed by the committee is that we don't feel at this stage that there is enough information, and therefore we seek further representations by means of holding a hearing and, first of all, have an inspection of the land. So if you could maybe just clarify if that's sufficient for you legally. Thank you.
Absolutely, Provost. And I probably should have highlighted the various procedures that were open to the committee
yes.
at the outset. So apologies for that. But you've summarised them quite succinctly. I think certainly two of them. The objective at the first meeting of the LRB, the Planning Review Committee, is to assess the papers and to determine whether there is sufficient information upon which to make a decision. And if you conclude that there isn't, then there are further procedures that are available, one of which is a site visit, which you've highlighted. Another is a hearing, which you've also highlighted. And the third possibility is for written submissions to be requested by either the applicant or any interested party. And those could be requested at a later point in time. Just on the site visit aspect, and you're correct to highlight that we have had restrictions on gatherings, and for good reason. I think the site that's the subject to this application does lend itself to an inspection from the road. I think it's you could probably see the site without even getting out your car, to be quite frank. So I think as long as the site visit is conducted in accordance with all the accepted protocols, then I see no reason for that not to happen. What I would suggest is that might be arranged in advance of any hearing that you've also requested, and that the hearing, the rules on the hearings are set down in the regulations, and they envisage that the hearing will be on specified matters. So if there are any particular issues that the committee would like to explore at the hearing, then this is the opportunity just to focus on those, and perhaps we can direct those issues to the applicant and any other interested parties that the committee wants to hear from. So it would be a case of identifying the specific issues and the parties that the committee would like to hear from at the hearings session.
Okay, well, I think one of the major issues for myself and other members can come in is obviously that in terms of the decision that was taken by the council to refuse, that it highlighted the parking issue, and I think that's really relative. Also, I think there's a bit dubiety about exactly what type of site this is, windfall site or whatever. So, but the main one for me is in terms of the refusal decision is the parking, and looking through the paperwork, and that's how it's advantageous. I think it's imperative that we have a look at the locus and see exactly what the problems could arise. And so if there's any other member got anything at this particular stage. Councillor Chair.
Thank you, Provost. I've the same issues, Provost, but it's the dubiety of whether the social housing or no social housing. And as a council, we really need to support the thing of social housing for our communities. But listening to Julia, there's a bit dubiety whether it is social housing or the applicant saying, oh, it's maybe no social housing, it's a windfall site. And so that's another part for me I would need to get clarified as well, Provost.
Thanks for your input. Councillor McCluskey, have you any other further?
No, they're the two main issues, but normally also we see a kind of circle, what we term as the town centre, because we've got different parking restrictions for that. So usually there's a kind of map that delineates the town centre, and I didn't see it. I didn't seem to see it in the vast paperwork. Maybe it's there, but I didn't see it pointed out. So it was just to see how far this is out the town centre, or is it technically inside. We know that the municipal buildings is classed as the town centre, and we know that the railway station, but going down this way, I didn't ken how far it goes down. So if I can get that answered as well, as other 2 points, 2 very important points, then I'm happy with that.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Hughes, you any input?
No, I mean, I don't have any other issues. I do take the point about parking, about affordable housing, and also the site itself, whether it's in terms of proximity to the town centre. So I wouldn't add anything else.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Blythe, come back to you. Is that enough information for you?
I think so, convener. I think what I'm taking from that is that you'd like to focus on parking issues and to hear from the applicant and potentially the Director of Development Services, an appropriate representative from that department in respect of the parking issues. Affordable housing, I suspect you'd be looking to question the applicant insofar as there's proposals for the affordable housing aspects of the development, and also issues with the definition of the town centre as that relates to the parking dimension as well. Does that sum up the hearing?
Yeah.
The issues for the hearing?
Does indeed. If other members are happy with that, I'm happy.
Happy with that, Provost.
Okay.
Happy with
And
that.
thank you. And apologies, Mr. Blythe. I should have came to you first in terms of the procedures, but I think we're all well aware now after your summary in relation to the.
Yeah, I mean, I think to be fair, Provost, the procedures are set out in the papers, so it's there in black and white. But it does perhaps help to just summarise those for the benefit of the committee. But I think what we'll do is we'll convene. We'll arrange a subsequent date for the committee to meet, but perhaps we could combine the site visit before the hearing on the same day, if that is acceptable.
Yeah.
And we'll just try and coordinate that as best we can.
Yeah, what used to do before the pandemic, we would have a site visit first thing in the morning, and then we'd come back to the buildings at that time. It's a different ball game now. Could I say as well, just for clarity, I think that decision, I think the members, I think is a very fair one. In the terms of the issues that they've got concerns about, especially the parking one, that although we have a planning officer here, we've got to recognise that the planning officer who did the summary isn't the planning officer that worked in the case. And the fact of the matter is that areas like roads, we haven't got an opportunity at this particular time to ask any questions to anybody from the roads or any other area. So that's fine. So we're ready to move on then. Everybody happy with that?
Yeah. Provost, could I just clarify that for the purposes of the the minute. It'll be an unaccompanied site visit, so
Yes.
it'll just be an opportunity to see the site. There'll be no opportunity for the applicant or any other party to delve into the merits. That will be done at the hearing session, which will take place afterwards.
Okay, thank you very much for that. That's a very valid point. Okay, then everybody's happy with that. Move on to item 6. It's plan application P210046 full erection of 9 dwelling houses with associated garages and engineering infrastructure, a site to the west of Castlewood, Glen Road, Torwood. It's pages 364 to 898, which took me nearly half a day to go through. So is it Mr. Millen going to be giving us a summary on this? Thank you, Mr. Millen.
Thank you, Provost.
If you could just, for the record, just tell us who you are and carry on with the summary. Thank you.
Certainly, Provost. My name's John Milne. I'm a planning officer within development management. This board seeks a review to review a detailed planning application for the erection of 9 detached dwelling houses with associated garages and engineering infrastructure at a site to the west of Castlewood, Glen Road, Torwood, submitted on 2nd February 2021. The location plan is on page 389 of your papers. The application site extends to 2.57 hectares and consists of part of a woodland area, some of which has recently been cleared under a felling permission issued by Scottish Forestry. The site slopes upward, away from the adjacent Glen Road, which partly runs parallel to the application site along approximately 200 metres. The application seeks planning permission to erect 9 large 4-bedroom detached dwelling houses served by 3 road access arrangements, 2 from Glen Road directly and 1 via a private road running at right angles to Glen Road. These can be identified on page 390 of your papers. Proposed changes in levels would be required to facilitate the development, including the creation of building platforms. The elevational drawings and house type drawings form pages 391 to 399 of your papers. The application was refused planning permission on 25th of June 2021, with the report on handling, that's pages 401 to 411 of your papers, setting out the considerations of the planning authority. Consultation responses received during the course of determination are attached to your papers, pages 420 to 432, and summarised on page 401 and 402 on the report on handling. These include responses from Children's Services, Museum Services, Falkirk Council's Roads Development Unit, Scottish Water, Falkirk Council's Environmental Protection Unit, the Forestry Commission Scotland, and advice regarding coal mining legacy. 10 representations to the applications were received. The comments summarised on page 402 and 403 of your papers. In relation to the Falkirk Local Development Plan, the application site is out with the Torwood settlement boundary, designated open space, and the proposed development assessed against the following policies: PE01 placemaking, PE06 archaeological sites, PE13 countryside, PE16 protection of open space, PE18 landscaping, PE19 biodiversity and geodiversity, PE20 trees, woodlands and hedgerows, PE21 promotion of forestry and woodland, HC01 housing land, HC05 housing in the countryside, IR03 education and new housing development, IR06 active travel, IR10 drainage infrastructure, and IR13 low and zero carbon development. In addition, material to considerations of the application are consideration of the site in relation to coal mining legacy, Falkirk Council supplementary guidance, that's items 24 to 33 of your enclosure papers, responses to consultations, that's items 5 to 13 of your enclosure papers, information submitted in support of the proposal, including the agent's comments in respect of the report and handling, forming pages 370 to 378 of your papers, assessment of public representations, or any other matters elected members consider appropriate in their decision making. It is also important to note the comments of the Scottish Forestry, that's page 425 of your papers, with regard to the classification of the development area as woodland on the National Forest Inventory, that the landowner has a legal binding agreement to keep it as woodland, and that the landowner has a legal restock responsibilities in the determination of the application. The application was refused on 8 reasons for refusal, which I can hopefully quickly run through. Reason for refusal 1, the application is contrary to policy PE01, placemaking of Falkirk Local Development Plan 2, as the proposed development does not fully embrace all 6 qualities of successful placemaking. In particular, the proposal would impact on the distinctive woodland setting of the village. A satisfactory landscape and streetscape fit has not been demonstrated, and the proposal fails to take into account the existing network of informal paths in the area. Reason for refusal 2 was the application is considered contrary to policy PE13, Green and Blue Network of Falkirk Local Development Plan 2, as the effect of the proposed development is loss of a woodland area, permanent landscape change from countryside to residential, potential biodiversity issues, and reduction in outdoor access opportunities at an important location within the green network. Reason 3, the application is contrary to policies PE14 countryside and HCO5 housing in the countryside of Falkirk Local Development Plan 2, as the proposed development does not satisfy any of the circumstances to support new housing development in the countryside. The proposal therefore represents unjustified development in the countryside. Reason 4, the application is contrary to policy PE16, protection of open space of Falkirk Local Development Plan 2, as the proposed development would have an adverse effect on the character and appearance of a designated open space area, potentially affects an area of significant ecological value, and threatens connectivity to the wider green network. Reason 5, the application is contrary to policy PE18, landscape of Falkirk Local Development Plan 2, as it had not been demonstrated through submission of a landscape and visual impact assessment that the proposed development would achieve a satisfactory landscape fit. In particular, the building platform is on rising ground above Torwood Village, and the development would impact on the woodland setting of the village. Reason 6, the application is contrary to policy PE19, biodiversity and geodiversity of Falkirk Local Development Plan 2, as it has not been demonstrated through submission of a habitat and protected species survey that the proposed development would protect and enhance habitats and species of importance. Reason 7, the application is contrary to policy PE20, trees, woodlands and hedgerows of Falkirk Local Development Plan 2, as it had not been demonstrated with reference to the Scottish Government's policy on control of woodland removal, what the significant additional public benefits would be from removal of the woodland resource. Furthermore, the existing felling permission does not cover the entirety of the application site. As such, it has not been demonstrated that the development would avoid the removal of safe and healthy trees or non-commercial woodland, where such removal would be to the detriment to landscape, local amenity, nature conservation or recreation interests. And finally, reason for refusal number 8, the application is considered contrary to policy IR06, active travel of Falkirk Local Development Plan 2, as the proposed development fails to safeguard, improve and extend the network of active travel routes. In particular, the proposal fails to accommodate existing informal routes within the site, which may be long established and which link to the wider network. Thank you for your patience, Provost.
No, thank you very much, Mr. Milne, for that extensive summary. Thank you for that. A lot of information contained in there. And once again, we've got to look at the size and scale of this application and referral to this committee. Could I say at this stage that once again, in the interest of consistency, that you mentioned quite a number of issues in your summary, Mr. Milne, that I feel that it would be advantageous before any decisions taken that we, as members of this committee, go out there and on site to have a look at this. Now, there's a number of issues that really hit out, is that Corwood's changed quite visibly in the past few years. One of them is what I would classify as an extension to the village limit by ourselves, who are building a number of houses this side. Also, in the past few months, there has been a number of applications that have been granted for housing in that area. And if you look through the submission by the applicant or the applicant's agent, tells you quite clearly that there is a site. The scale and density of the proposed housing is identical to the existing, probably on the opposite side of the Glen Road. So there's a number of issues there that I'll be taking cognizance in. But I'm going to just state the same as I had said for the first one. I believe that there's not enough information here at the moment for us to take an informed decision. And I believe that a lot of the points that you raised, Mr. Milne, would be advantageous to go and have a look for ourselves. The woodland issue, obviously, because it tells you about the compensatory element that they would be happy to see. But my own view is that we need to go out and site, and once again, we need an opportunity to ask questions of relevant officers and also give the applicant an opportunity to state his case. So like the initial application that's came forward in item 5, I would go to formally move that we go out and site and that we set up a hearing and the site visit comes first, and as Mr. Blythe says, it would be unaccompanied. So I'm going to go back to councillors now. I'll start with Councillor McLuckie, Councillor Kerr, then Councillor Hughes. Councillor McLuckie.
Yes, Provost, I see a number of questions that need answered here, despite the vast volume of minuted, representations. Clearly, there's certain things. The village limits. What is the village limit and what is countryside? Like he says, the village has been extended. So where does it? What is within the village limits now, and what isn't? Because one side's developed and the other side's no. So we need clarification on that. They mentioned the right to access. It's unofficial, kind of informal routes. We need clarification on that, because if it's not a formally right away in that and it's somebody else's ground, we know, for example, that the forestry has a right to access to and forestry, but if this now belongs to a private individual, then that access, isn't the same access that you get. So we need that for clarification. The biodiversity, I would like some questions on that. What has been failed, what is no, we'll see that on site, and to see the compromise and issues that come up, because it may be that by different type of trees being planted or hardwood trees, that it's actually, what they're offering could be more beneficial than what's there, because quite clearly the type of trees there is very limited in their biodiversity appeal to a lot of wildlife, a lot of animals, where you get oak trees and you get all different trees. Well, there's a lack of chestnut trees in the place and apple trees and forest. I mean, you could be a whole host of different trees put in that is certainly better for biodiversity. So there's quite a few questions I would like to look at, including the questions about felling permission, what has been permitted in the felling, because, like I say, this isn't a historic woodland, as I would call it. It's just for felling, for basically for wood pulp and that, compared with what I would class as historic woodland of value, because of the type of trees and things that have been there for 100 years. These is for felling. So there are a number of issues that I would like answered by officers, and the best way to do that is being able to ask them. You're right. So Certainly from officers and the applicant, I would want the questions. There's a lot of points from members of the public, and as it may state as just saying don't agree. But as I say, there is things that we need to. So we take regard of all that, and there'll be questions that members may ask.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Kerr, then Councillor Hughes.
Just plain and simple for me, Provost. I'm quite happy with your proposal.
Okay, Councillor Hughes.
Yep, Provost, I fully support Councillor McCluskey and Councillor Kerr and also yourself. Obviously, some of the areas I'm obviously interested in is the village limit, the protection of open space, biodiversity, the definition of deforestation stroke felling in this area, housing in the countryside in relation to infill development.
Perfect. Thank you, Councillor Hughes. Douglas, have you got enough information from members during their summaries there that you can take forward? I see you've been taking notes. No, I see you've been taking notes. Have you got enough information there?
I think what I've noted is so as a general, obviously the members want to see the site and get a feel for the layout, etc. So we'd have an unaccompanied site visit, but they'd also want to question the applicant and relevant officers and interested parties on the extent of the village limits, countryside, informal routes, access routes, sorry, biodiversity, issues to do with the felling permission that's in place, the open space issues, deforestation, and issues to do with housing in the countryside and infill development. You know, I don't think we're going to capture every single issue that may arise in the course of a hearing, but I think if we can identify particular officers to attend the hearing, then hopefully they would be armed with the appropriate information to answer members' questions.
I think, Douglas, it would be beneficial for everybody if we went on the 2 site visits in the morning and then come back if members were happy, and then did the two applications on the one day. Would members be happy with that? Councillor Hughes?
No problem.
No problem, Provost.
Councillor Kerr? Fine, because I think it would, because obviously we're running into the end of term, but it would be beneficial, even because I know that it takes some time to organise the hearings. The fact is, if we had the site visits under our belt, I think it would be beneficial.
I think that makes perfect sense. Provost, have the site visits in the morning and then try and convene the hearings in the afternoon.
Right. Okay. Okay. Is everybody happy with that this morning then? I think that's been an open and frank, and I think we've taken we've taken 2 decisions, I think, that have been open and transparent, and that's what this committee is all about. And thank you very much to officers for their time and consideration.